Hello everybody, welcome along to TGP. This is TGP1. It's a Tuesday night and we're here at the Netherlands track, which is the Zandvoort circuit. This is actually the second time that Softy and I have done this. We have been recording qualifying. We were live streaming it, but apparently no one of you could see it. We had a thrilling session, I must say. We haven't got very long before the race starts, so we'll go over it quickly. But Softy, just quickly before we get into the race, give us a few pointers of what we saw in qualifying.
Yeah, so the Confessor, pole position, shock horror. Good qualifying from Jack Hickey in second, Danneman third. They need to be where they need to be in that striking distance. A few good results there. Unfortunately, Dan Morris, I think, qualified last, so not having a good race. But a few crashes, quite a lot of spins. But we managed to get through the 80-minute qualifying session, I believe.
Yep, we did. A bit of drama towards the end as well. We had Jack Hickey on a faster lap, made a mistake, had to pull off. We then had the Confessor on a faster lap, crashed. Dan the Man was then left to pick up the pieces, but it could only put his car into second place. We got the top three in the championship. We got first in the championship on pole, third in the championship in second, and second in the championship in third. But in the meantime, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 lights in the Netherlands. And we're underway, and it was a jumpy start from the Confessor, and Dan the Man's got quite a good way away as well. The run down to turn number 1, Dan the Man's got the inside line, Dan the Man's going to take the lead of the race, but the Confessor isn't giving up on this one, and he goes a long way, and he's spun! He's round! He's facing the wall, and he's dropped all the way to the back of the pack, and Dan the Man has been given a gift. It isn't his birthday as far as I know, but he's had all his presents he could have wanted in one go, as he's got the lead of the race, and the man who's leading the championship, who's won every single race, could equal the record for most race wins in a row in TGP1, finds himself in 18th place.
Yeah, unfortunate because I think he tried to hold it around the outside of Dan the Man, probably touched the exit curb, and that sort of sent him round. And actually, Big Boy Ewan also down there. So sort of two people that did good in qualifying have clearly lost all their positions.
Yep, disastrous, and we got a spinner as well, and that's Speed Kai who's round. He dropped a couple of places at the start, but he's dropping even more now, and that's pushed Alistair Bain up into third, and both AlphaTauris inside the top 5. We've got a bit of front wing flying across the track there as well, but it's all gone wrong for the Confessor. He went for the medium tyres, which we're going to see him longer in the race, but he's burned through a good layer of rubber already, getting his car in the right way, but he has caught back up to the back of the pack, but very difficult to overtake round here, and at the end of lap 1, it's Dan the Man who's in the lead of the race, with reigning champion Jack Hickey in second, Alistair Bain in third, followed by the two AlphaTauris. New Zealand Cam, who dropped a couple of places at the start of that race as well, now starting to put pressure on Chiapelli. We had a couple of people peel into the pits, and Softy, you've seen something.
Yeah, I'm actually on board with the Confessor. Speed Kai down in 15th after his spin, and actually there's a good little battle there. You might want to have a look at that. But Speed Kai getting into the back of Jack Pearson and pretty much holding the Confessor up. So the Confessor nearly losing a bit of his wing there. But yeah, it was unfortunate for a few drivers. Speed Kai, the Confessor, and Big Boy Ewan after some decent qualifyings, and they're all back. And as you mentioned briefly a moment ago, the Confessor going for that spin would probably have overheated his tyres as well, which will take a few laps to cool down.
Yep, so, what an exciting opening lap. Also, we've got a problem for Alistair Bain, who's dropped a few places. He was running in third, now in 6th place, with Phil Bargewell putting him under pressure as Cam, trying to barge his way through Chiapelli, but he's now been hit by Alistair, and the man who's the big winner in all of this is Matt Tibos, who's made his way from 8th place up into the top 5, with Phil Bargewell still on his back, but Cam and Alistair Bain having a bit of contact after Cam tried to put a move on Luca Chiapelli, and Phil Bargewell's now got past the Alpine.
Yeah, fair play there to Phil Bargewell, but yeah, looking with New Zealand Cam and Luca Chiapelli there, I think Luca just went in the racing line and just didn't care that New Zealand Cam was there, so pretty naughty from New Zealand Cam. We've got a yellow flag there. It is Jean's out. Jean has spun it on the exit of turn 1, and I think came together potentially with Big Boy Ewan there.
And Jack Pearson's round as well. So don't know what happened there, but it's meant that the man in 4th place in the championship is out. Meanwhile, back at the front though, Softy, what an opportunity this is for Dan the Man and Jack Hickman. We said in the other show that we did, that none of you can hear, how important it was for these two to get a good result tonight, to really try and take back some form of momentum from the Confessor, who was just running away with it. And now these two... Matt Tibos. It's hard. It's hard, isn't it, sometimes, Paul Matt, the former TGP1 champion. Let's not forget. But coming back to Dan and Jack, this is huge. This is massive for these two.
It is. I mean, that's what they need to do. Obviously, naturally they can only do what they can do, but the Confessor spinning is giving them a real opportunity. I mean, the gap is absolutely massive, so it's not the end of the world at all for the Confessor. But I think a fair few people, Dino Courtney, some of the main guys in TGP, I think will be quite thankful that the Confessor can't get as many wins in a row as I think the record. So that's one record that I think is going to stand for a little longer.
Yep, Dino Courtney will certainly be pleased. Worth remembering, no safety car in tonight's racing.
And the Confessor's in. The Confessor's pit for hards, so he's making an early stop from those mediums, which is an interesting call there to go on those hards.
Yeah, it is an interesting call. Clearly, it's one he feels he has to do. He's going to come out just behind his teammate. Is he? No, his teammate. Oh no, his teammate's out of the race.
The wall.
So not behind his teammate after all. So the top two then, they've got 2-second gap to Viva La Merco. Viva La Merco, what a comeback this is for him. First race back in TGP after the best part of 10 years and finds himself currently running in P3. Jack Hickman and Dan the Man there, their gap is sort of... It's toing and throwing a little bit, Softy. What Jack takes a little bit out of Dan, then Dan probably takes a little bit more out of his tyres. Jack Hickman really closing in on Dan at the moment. But have these two got to work together for the bigger picture, or is this going to be... This is a very rare opportunity we're going to have this season. It's hell to leather. Do you think it's going to be what that they're going to think about, or are they both going to be thinking this might be our only chance to win the race this season?
That's exactly what they're going to be thinking. I think you're in. Okay, yeah, you work together to some extent. You think, I'm not going to battle you too hard, but in the end, they've got a 2.1 second gap over Viva La Merco there. So they've got a gap where, in the end, it's just those two. If they're not careful, then it could be a three-way battle. But you just got to think about yourself. One of them's second in the championship, one of them's third in the championship. It's not going to make much of a difference in the den of the championship really come the end of this race. So they're just going to be thinking about, right, I want this win, I'm going to get this win.
Well, they're going to have to be selfish and greedy to a certain degree, Softy thinks. And I agree, actually. I think they've got to be doing this themselves. They're racing for two different teams at the end of the day. Meanwhile, there's a tasty little battle going on for P3 at the moment. Luca Cippelli finds himself in the dizzying heights of 4th place and very close to track limits there as well, it must be said. But this could be huge for Luca. The Manxman thought about pitting but decided against it in the end, but he's got a little bit of a run of his teammate, but as we've discussed already, Softy, very difficult to overtake around this track.
It is. I think we saw, 2 seasons ago, the last time I raced here, Speed Kai was sort of chasing me down. He was within half a second of me for probably most of the race, but just couldn't get near me. And Viva La Merco and Mr. Cippelli are actually both relatively level on ERS. So at this stage, it does look like Mr. Cippelli has that pace advantage, but they both need to be careful to not use too much ERS in this battle, or they could be very prone to being overtaken come the end of the races. Actually, Mr. Cippelli there has a bit of a wobble with that AlphaTauri, and actually one thing that they both need to consider as well is you're coming into near the halfway point of this race in the next few laps. They're going to have to pit at separate times also. It's going to be a case of who pits first, who pits second.
Yeah, well, the inter-team squad was going to come in, I'm sure. Meanwhile, we've got New Zealand Cam getting very close to the back of Alistair Bain. These two already had a run in this race. I'm sure we'll want to avoid another one. Cam almost pushing that Alfa Romeo round the corners. Just keeping an eye on the mini-map for the two AlphaTauris. Are we going to see either of them peel into the pits? I think Luca's just pitted. Luca has pitted. There we go. He's trying to undercut his teammate. Phil Barger's into the pits as well. ELT Jordan, we haven't mentioned him. He's up to 6th. Cam, meanwhile, is trying to improve his position up the inside of Alistair Bain. And the Aston Martin driver positions his car well. And on those slightly harder tyres, on the medium tyres, he makes his way now up into P5.
Yep, nice and easy DRS assisted there. A bit of ERS management there, but Cam now only has 8% ERS. So I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle towards the end of the race. And Alistair Bain, 75% ERS. So he may have lost that place at the minute, and they are on separate tyres. Both obviously started on those tyres that they're currently on. I think Alistair will drop away with the tyre wear at this point, and probably will pit at the end of this lap. But New Zealand Cam, fighting this way back up the field after a few mistakes here and there. But he's going to struggle with that ERS deployment now, and he probably won't move up too much further in terms of pace. Yep.
Well, we'll see how that goes for the Aston Martin driver. and whether we will see Alistair Bain coming to the pits. New Zealand Cam now very much setting his sights on ERT Jordan in front of him. Both of these two are on the medium tyres. Dan the Man, meanwhile, has pulled out a second advantage over Jack Hickman. He has broken the DRS. As Viva La Marco now does, Mirko even comes into the pit. So where's Chiapelli? Chiapelli at the moment is about 10 seconds behind Dom Smith, who hasn't pitted yet. Alistair Bain did also come into the pits at the end of that lap as well. The AlphaTauri mechanics getting to work on Mirko's car. Luca Chiapelli herring down the start-finish straight. Where is Mirko? Speed limit is off. He's heading towards the turn number 1, and it looks like he is going to do it, but is he going to be on cold tyres, and is he going to struggle? Luca Chiapelli has to take the long way round, and Chiapelli, is he going to find his way through? They're going to be side by side. Mirko concedes the place and does have to give up what is a net P3 for the moment at least, while Mirko's tyres get up to speed. And Phil Bargewell could actually be in the mix for this as well in the Mercedes, having pitted at the same lap as Chiapelli.
Yeah, I mean, fair play there. Obviously, doing it all in the pits, Mr. Chiapelli. I think you could see before the pit stop that he had probably a bit more pace opposed to Mirko on there as well. But yeah, fair play. Now he just needs to sort of get his head down as Mirko's trying to get those tyres warmed up.
Yeah, he's really struggling. He just went wide. Yeah, and Phil Bargewell's in a good position to try and make the most of this. Both of them do have DRS, so Phil isn't going to be in prime attacking position. He's not, interestingly, using his overtake either. So clearly just thinking of the long game of this one. Knows that the podium is there. He's got two drivers in front of him. One had success in TGP2, a two-time TGP2 champion. The other one, long time not in TGP1. So Phil Bargewell...
Jordan and New Zealand Cam there for third.
Yeah, and Cam has now got past Jordan. There we go. Yeah, so the Aston Martin has, after his incident with Alistair and Chiapelli, has opened the book and he's turned straight to the rampage. And Jordan isn't giving up on this. Jean has come back to the party, and leaving the party is Jordan after that wide moment, and Cam suddenly got a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, and the Confessor ran the outside of Court in P12 there, so the Confessor up to P12, only a few points there, I believe it is, or 1 point potentially, so not really where he would be expecting, but I think with he's got a 6-second gap to 11th, so I think he probably will close up, but I don't think he'll be gaining too many places unless there's any incidents ahead of him.
So Softy, we're just coming to half race distance right about now. The top two, second and a half separating them. Can Jack do anything about Dan? Is the undercut powerful enough here to that to be a worthwhile strategy to take, or is he just going to end up in a world of it on old soft tyres at the end of the race?
I mean, tyrewear's not particularly great around here, but at the same time, it's very difficult, as we see Dom Smith is now in the pits in P6, but it's hard. I think the fact that it's very hard to overtake around here anyway, because you're running such high wing levels, I mean, Jack Hickey's got nothing to lose. He may as well try that early pit stop and try and get those fresh tyres, especially with the fact they're going to be on the soft tyres as well. As we see, Magic Poop Cannon has sadly retired there on the exit of actually where we're coming up to now, on the exit of this next corner for the two leaders. But Jack Hickey, I think, should try the undercut. They're both running a bit more. Well, actually, Jack Hickey's now got 80% ERS, while Dan the Man's got 48. So we can see why that gap shot up by about a second in the last lap or two. But I think Jack Hickey is probably looking at. I don't really know, to be honest. I think Dan probably is coming in this lap with how much ERS is used, but Jack Hickey needs to try and do something different to beat him, and Dan the Man does stay out, and Jack Hickey also stays out then, so that's interesting. I think they'll probably go to about lap 12, obviously the next lap before they do pit.
Meanwhile, the battle for net P3 is raging on. Viva La Mirko has got his tyres up to speed, and now starting to put some pressure on his teammate. Phil Bargewell is still in the mix of this as well. These three separated by just 6/10. Luca going very defensive. Phil Bargewell with the double toe as they head down the main straight, but just not close enough to make any inroads. And Mirko runs a little bit wide there. That might have given an opportunity to Phil Bargewell, but he wasn't quite close enough. Cam, meanwhile, pitted, just coming out of the pits at the back of shot now, and comes out behind this battle. So still not out of the running for a top three finish, it must be said. But Phil Bargewell, look at him, Softy, he's all over the back of Mirko. This is his opportunity, surely.
He is, but he's got to go around the outside of this next corner, which is not really where you want to be. So he needs to be very careful just to nail that line, and he thinks better of it, which is good for him there. But yeah, not really an overtaking spot. You need that overtake done before you get to that long right-hander. Otherwise, you're going to be and he nearly runs into the back of him there, probably taking a bit too much speed and not enough braking into that corner. But this is what I was referring to earlier as well. It's very hard to overtake on this circuit, especially as Mirko ahead.
Jack Hickey pits. Sorry to interrupt.
There we go.
Softy, Jack Hickey pits. So, the Red Bull is the first one to draw blood, and he's going to have to do, 7 laps on these soft tyres. It's slow. It's a slow stop.
Very slow. What's he doing? Oh, no, it's just, I think it was just lag. I think it was just the game there being, the game. I don't think he actually got held up there. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. Is he going to get ahead of Dan Morris? Potentially not. It looks like Dan Morris is going to be just ahead of him, so not really what he wants, but I don't think he'll... I don't think Dan Morris is really in this fight, so I don't think he'll hold him up too much, but he needs to clear Dan Morris pretty quickly if he's to have any hope of attacking Dan the Man, and Dan probably will peel into the pits at the end of this lap, knowing this.
Yeah, this has not worked out too well for Jack Hickey. Dan Morris is on the same tyres he started the race on, and he really needs to clear this Williams driver as soon as he can. Dan Morris, let's not forget, took pole position in his first race in TGP1 last week, so he's no slouch. And someone else who's not sitting on the couch at the moment is Phil Bargewell, still putting lots and lots of pressure on these two AlphaTauris, as New Zealand Cam is almost within a second of these as well. So we could end up starting to have a 4-way battle for third, and Jack Hickey hasn't been able to get past Dan Morris, as Dan the Man has stayed out. That would have been the perfect opportunity for Dan the Man to have pitted. Jack Hickey has got the run on Dan Morris. They're getting very close to contact. I think there was a little love touch there, but this is working perfectly for Dan the Man. I don't understand why he hasn't pitted.
I know, I would have probably pitted that lap, and I think Dan Morris is going to be in the pits, and yes, he is. But that's actually, I think, it's not so bad for Jack Hickey, the fact that Dan stayed out one more lap, because it does mean Jack Hickey's now going to be able to use
Softy, to cut back to you, the battle for third. Phil Bargewell round the outside of Mirko into turn number 1, and he moves his way up into 4th place, and now he's in prime position to challenge Luca Ciappelli, and importantly, he has a car in between him and the fast-charging Cam.
Yeah, I mean, that was a nice little battle there. I think this battle for the final position on the podium is very good, and New Zealand Cam obviously is derating on 0% ERS, and he's thinking about it. He's pushing him. Is he going to try it up the inside on the soft tyres? He's thinking about it. Mirko does run it wide, so that may help New Zealand Cam there, but he's got that soft tyre grip, but Mirko is not letting this one lie, and New Zealand Cam back up the inside again, side by side. Very easy to lose your rear end here, and there we go. Mirko does stay ahead, but fair play to New Zealand Cam for trying that move, and he's still trying it. New Zealand Cam there, but a quick one. Jack Hickey's gained half a second on Dan the Man in the last few corners.
Dan pits. Dan's in the pit. So let's see how that works out. We're still watching this scintillating battle for what is 5th place, but we're going to have to come back to it. Dan the Man is exiting the pits. Jack Hickey on the pit straight. Dan's done enough, hasn't he, Softy?
I would say so. He's going around the turn 1 already, so it's a bit closer, I'd say, potentially. But yeah, Dan the Man.
And here comes Phil. Phil Bargewell round the outside of turn number 1. Phil Bargewell gets on the power, and Luca Ciappelli tries to squeeze him, but Phil's hanging in there. The two of them side by side through turn number 2, and Phil Bargewell takes 3rd place. A really brave move from the Northerner. Ciappelli gets on the power too early, and Squirrels coming out of turn number 3, and that gives Phil the little bit of breathing space he needs to secure 3rd place for the moment. But Ciappelli, Cam and Mirko are going to let this one lie.
No, fair play from Phil Bargewell. They're getting aggressive. I think he has used pretty much all of his
Softy,
for that move.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but look at the front. Look at Jack Hickey.
Half a second. I told you it would have been a bit closer, but Dan the Man does have quite a lot more ERS, 68% ERS, while Jack Hickey does have that 40% ERS. So, and Dan is on those fresher tyres, so it's a lot closer than it was. I think Dan still does have that slight advantage, and he does have that slight pace advantage from what we saw in the first part of this race.
Yep, Cam, meanwhile, now just a couple of attempts behind Ciappelli. Ciappelli not really able to keep with Phil Bargewell. Back at the front, Dan the Man has got that gap back up to 8 tenths of a second, so he might have done enough to secure this race win. Cam, meanwhile, onto the main straight. He's right behind Ciappelli, but you're right, he's got no battery left to really fight this. He's going to have to be a lunge up the inside. He thinks about sending it. Ciappelli and Cam both run a little bit wide, and at the moment at least, there's more contact, and Cam somehow keeps it out of the wall, but certainly for the moment, keeps it behind Ciappelli.
Yeah, very close. I think there was nothing in between that one there. A bit of wheel banging is not too bad, but you don't want to do that too much, especially on the exit of corners around here, because you will lose your car immediately. But yeah, New Zealand Cam is getting really aggressive. He wants this move to try and chase after Phil.
Yeah, well, he can smell a podium, and he knows he needs it. Phil is not really getting away, it must be said. Cam is certainly the quicker driver of all of this group, and he knows he needs to get past Chiapelli as soon as he can. And look at this, I thought he was going to try one around the outside then, but can't quite manage it, and actually he's lost momentum coming onto the straight.
Yeah, I think at the minute, just because they're so low on ERS, it's hard to overtake. And New Zealand Cam is on the softs while the two cars ahead are on those mediums. So, and here we go, he's going to try and round the outside. And actually, Mr. Chiapelli, they're not really leaving him enough room, but he is still there. And and that may be potentially a bit of wing damage there, but that's going to allow Mirko a bit of a run on New Zealand Cam there. But yeah, very dangerous and very cautious from Mr. Chiapelli there.
Yeah, two of them running side by side there for a couple of corners straight. Really good stuff to see. Shame about a little bit of contact, but you can't have everything perfect. Phil Bargewell isn't breaking the toe, and they're still within DRS of him. Oh, there's contact! Cam has been sent into a spin from Mirko, and the soft shod Aston Martin finds himself tumbling down the order. He's down to 8th place. He's still ahead of the Confessor, but that chance of a podium finish might have gone thanks to a little tough tap from Mirko, who's now dropped behind Kieran as well during all of that. And this nice little battle that we had developing has cooled off just for the moment.
Yeah, I didn't really catch exactly what happened there, but as you mentioned, someone tapped someone. I think Mirko tapped Cam there, so I think Cam will be pretty annoyed with that if that is the case, and quite understandable. But I must actually say at the minute, the Confessor's in P9. Alistair only 7 tenths behind him on much fresher medium tyres. I don't think he'll be able to do anything in terms of pace-wise to attack him, but the Confessor needs to be careful in case he does lose a place if he makes any sort of mistake there. But yeah, and the gap at the front, 2.3 seconds. Dan the Man is now on 16% ERS. So Dan the Man has actually spunked all of his ERS to try and get more of a gap, and well, it's a lap and a half to go, so unless Dan makes any mistakes, I think it's pretty much a win for him.
Yeah, really, really good result for the Ferrari driver. The record we're not going to see equalled, so we're certainly not going to see it broken. The Confessor, as you said at the moment, languishing down in 9th place, a position he's unfamiliar with this season. Kieran, meanwhile, in 5th place, less than a second behind Chiapelli, so he could still have an opportunity at podium place. Cam dropped behind Jordan in all of that melee, as we said, so down in 8th place. That's a disappointment for him. He deserved better from this race, you've got to say, but with a lap and a half to go, the story hasn't been written yet. There's still a page and a half to go, and the ink won't be dry after this race for a little while. I think that a couple of things are going to be taken to a steward's office. It's going to be a busy night for Dom Smith, who is actually running a very respectable 11th at the moment. He's got Dan Morris for company. Let's have a look. Let's give those two a little bit of airtime. Softy, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite good. Dan Morris, a surprise pole position, I believe it was in I think it was Canada, was it? His first race in TGP. So the race didn't quite go as planned, but yeah, it's been a bit hit and miss from Dan Morris. I think since he made that debut in TGP a few weeks ago. It's not quite gone his way in terms of pace, so I think Canada's probably one of those flash circuits, but he's not quite close enough to Dom Smith. And Dom Smith, as you mentioned, respectable P11. He probably was expecting maybe a bit more. I don't think he really did much practice for this race, so a bit of practice goes a long way to get used to a circuit and where you can attack. But a few points for both of these drivers won't be too bad for either of them.
No. And one person who definitely will be coming away from this thinking that wasn't too bad is Dan the Man. Look at this. With just a few corners to go, the crowd rising to their feet to applaud a man who's going to end an 8-race consecutive win streak. It may be their teammate that the crowd would usually be cheering for caught, but the Dutchman is down in 14th. It's up to Dan the man from Liverpool, to take the win in Holland. Dan the Man wins for Ferrari. Reigning champion Jack Hickey ends up P2. Phil Bargewell is going to round the final corner to take P3, only just ahead of Chiapelli, and Kieran in 5th. Viva Lamarco. Philip crosses the line in 6th at least. Jordan is going to come home 7th with Cam crashing over the line in 8th. Your championship leader, Confessor down in P9 with Alistair Bain coming across the line in P10. Dom Smith and Dan Morris. Dan's still going at it, but as they cross the line, Dom Smith has just about done enough to cling on to 11th place. Big Boy Dewan is going to come home in 13th. Court, the local man, is going to come home in 14th with Jack Pearson, the last driver to cross the line in 15th. Well, Softy, is there going to be, can we see a mid-season charge from Dan the Man? Is this the start of something new, or is this just a flash in the pan?
I'd love to say yes, it's going to be a good end of the season, good second half of the season. Dan the Man is going to win the title, he's going to win loads of races, he's going to get loads of pole positions. Unfortunately, though, as we've seen in many seasons previous to now, he's shown he's got good pace at certain races, but he's just too inconsistent. Same with Jack Hickey and most drivers. So I think in terms of pace and raw consistency, I think the Confessor has still easily got this, barring any unforeseen mistakes, of course.
Yeah, well, he'll certainly be hoping there are no unforeseen mistakes. But as the champagne is being sprayed, it's the prancing horse that found its way galloping to the top with the bull just about falling short. The driver's there enjoying a moment. And hats off to Phil Bargewell as well. Good job for him in third place. Let's not forget he has had a bit of an inconsistent season, but it's definitely a W for Dan. With Jack Hickman in second place, Phil Bargewell rounding out the podium in third, started 10th, let's not forget. Mr. Chiapelli in fourth, Speed Kai in fifth, Mirko in sixth, but I can imagine a trip to the steward's office is in order. Jordan in seventh with Cam, unlucky in eighth, the Confessor. Wow, didn't it all go badly for him in P9? Alistair Bain rounding out the top 10, could have been a lot more for him today. Dom Smith in 11th place with Dan Morrison 12th, Big Boy Dewan in 13th, Court 14th, Jack Pearson 15th, Matt Tibos a lap down in 16th, and we have Magic Poop Cannon, Jake Davies and Jean-Luc Taylor failing to make the finish line. So, Softy, interesting race, plenty going on. What are your takeaways from what we've just seen? Have we just seen that it is possible for the Confessor to not win this title?
I mean, again, as I mentioned, pure pace, pure consistency. He's easily head and shoulders above the rest of the grid this season. We did see last season he did have pace, but he was very inconsistent, making a lot of mistakes and things like that. So I think, it's his to lose in the end. He's got a massive, still massive chunk of sort of put a points gap to Dan the Man and Jack Hickey, but. In the end, this is what Dan and Jack Hickey need to do. They need to be second and third if they're not on pole, fighting the Confessor, because we saw what happened at turn one. It was put under pressure. He made a mistake. I mean, okay, granted, it's probably not a mistake in the sense of being under a massive amount of pressure. Turn one, you get on the curb, it spins you. That's F122 for you. But if they can do that more and actually be with him, be within a few tenths of him, be rivaling him in the pace department in qualifying, then anything can happen.
It certainly can. Well, we're joined now by the man who finished fourth in that race, Luca. What a showing from AlphaTauri. First of all, how did you find it? Not only fighting with your teammate, but with Phil and Cam as well. It was certainly entertaining from our end, but how was it actually in the driver's seat?
Tell you what, it was an intense race. It was on the wire for a lot of them, especially on the mediums come towards the end as the tyre wear was really getting in there. And some really good hard battles with New Zealand Cam, with Phil Bargewell, with my teammate as well, new onto this season. So yeah, it was really, really intense, but really good night so far. And
do you feel disappointed that you weren't able to take third place in that? Do you feel that you had the edge on Phil, but just perhaps could have managed battery or tyre wear a little bit better? Do you feel that third was achievable, or do you feel that actually fourth place was as good as it could have got?
Yeah, I mean, I think I used a lot of my battery, making sure that I undercut my teammate to try and get out ahead of him. I only just got out ahead of him from the pit exit as well, so I think that was my downfall. Maybe if I'd approached it a little bit differently with that, I could have fought Phil a bit more for that final podium position, but this is my highest finish in TGP1, so I'm really happy with the result.
Well, so you should be as well. It was very well driven. Did you fear that Cam would have displaced you as well? Obviously, you and him ran closer than wheel to wheel through most of the last sort of few laps of the race. But do you feel if he hadn't have had that incident with your teammate that you would have been able to keep him at bay, or do you think that he had that pace advantage over you?
He definitely had a pace advantage over me with the soft tyres. I think they were probably starting to fall off towards the end, so he was losing out, and I don't know what his energy levels look like as well, but for some reason, I remember on one of the last few laps, he sat right behind me on the pit straight when he could have easily taken the position, so maybe he had run out of energy. I don't know. I think it would have been very, very close towards the end.
Well, Luca, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us. Good luck in Spa. What can we expect to see from you? Are we going to see another top 5 finish?
I don't think so. I think I seem to have driven quite well around the Netherlands. I think all will be back into normal order come Spa. So I'm hoping for a top 10 at best, but we'll see how it goes. Excellent.
Luca, good stuff. Thank you very much for joining us. Good luck in the second of tonight's races. We are in Spa, and we've got, well, what's going to be a fantastic race, I'm sure, coming up to you. The Confessor's Run, then. 8 consecutive wins coming to an end. Softy, you've mentioned it already. The Confessor making a mistake. Could he be catchable at the top of the standings? It may not be a big dent that's been made, but it's certainly a dent. And is this confidence going to see down the man through to pushing on, perhaps to get a few more wins this season?
I mean, I could hope so. I hope, even if the Confessor does win, I do hope that, the other drivers can fight him for wins on a regular basis, put him under pressure, and I'm sure he'll make mistakes as anyone does when they're under pressure. But Spa is a very different beast entirely. You can overtake. Low downforce is the king round here, so it's going to be interesting to see. And I will say, sort of pole time, it was a 43.0 last season. I am probably expecting a mid 42 to be pole, probably a 42.4, 42.5, maybe ever so slightly quicker. It just depends really on the grip levels there, but a mid 42 is what I'd probably expect to be pole.
Well, Softy, we've got an opportunity to follow the championship leader, the Confessor, on his first flying lap, so let's ride on board and talk us through a lap of Spa-Francorchamps.
Yep, so into the Lacombe chicane, you want to avoid the curb on the right-hand side, take all the curb on this left-hand apex, be very careful, you just want to short shift through this right-hander here, because it's very easy to lose the rear end. Down into, obviously, this next corner, keep it tight actually, you want to try and stay in as high gear as you can, just to minimise the traction loss. And here we go, no name. You want to avoid some of the curb on the left, a bit of understeer there, but it's very easy to get a loose rear end due to the low downforce. And here we go, poo on, 8th gear, downshift to 7th, take as much speed through it as possible, avoid the curb on the right hand side because it will invalidate you if you go over that white line. And here we go into this next little chicane here. You can either take a wider line, avoid the curb on the right hand side, as we see the Alpine there, be very careful on the curbs again, low downforce. You really need to be struggling, obviously you end up struggling with traction and overall grip, but here we go. He seems to have done it nice at 15, obviously 1 minute 15.2 up until this point. Keep it nice and straight, shortest line into what will be the bus stop, the only real corner that you need to pay attention to in this final little sector. Very easy to ruin your lap here. Don't brake too late, don't brake too early. You want to ride all the curb on the right hand side for this first apex, all the curb on the left hand side for this apex. Again, short shift, very easy to lose traction. DRS wide open, and what is it going to be? It is going to be a mid 43 at present with a 43.4. Not bad, but I definitely reckon, obviously, he and probably a few other drivers can go considerably quicker.
Yep, we shall but see. A few drivers out there on laps at the moment. Jack Hickey through Sector 1, down the man, just starting a lap. Cam through Sector 1 as well. Who do we choose? Mirko. Mirko's coming to the end of a lap. What did you think of Mirko's return to racing then in TGP1? Obviously, he had the incident with Cam, but was that just a blip on what was actually a very respectable return to racing?
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, it's not easy to just sort of join into TGP1 and be fighting for podiums, straight off. I think if you've got the pace, you've got the pace. Irrelevant of whether you're in a league or not. I think in hindsight, hindsight is always a good thing when it comes to knowing who you're racing against, knowing who you can fight hard and stuff. But Mirko should be very happy with how he performed. He's currently in P3 at the minute. It is early on in the session, but he's beating a lot of established and previous world champions so far in his one race that he's done.
Yep, we're just about to have Cam come to the line, who goes P2. 3 attempts off of the Confessor, but I think you're right there, Softy. I think Mirko, he he did a good account for himself in that race. I think we could safely say. Yeah, certainly something he should be disappointed with, and he put in a good performance. We've had a few more lap times come in. Kieran's just gone into P4. Jack Hickey put his car up into P6. How's Dan the Man getting on? He's coming towards the bus stop chicane now. So let's see how the Liverpudlian gets on. A really, really good race for him. He needed that. He needed that for a confidence boost, but also he was so disappointed after Monaco. He really thought he could take it to the Confessor, but that turn one melee that we had obviously left him out of the race. And I think that he could have really done with a good result there, even if it was a second still behind the Confessor. He could have done with a podium, or at least something there to give him a bit of confidence. But that last race, that will mean the world to him. And it will do for Jack Hickey, I think, too. He may have not taken the race win, but that's a big step for these two drivers in the right direction to sort of establish themselves as the people who could still take it to the Confessor. They just need circumstances to go their way.
No, absolutely. And Cam has got a penalty there, so I'm not too sure. He's actually in the barrier there, so I'm not too sure what happened between him and who was it? Was it Matt Tibos there? Was it someone else? I'm not actually too sure on what happened
there was an Alpine that was around the mini-map as well.
Yeah,
I think it could have been.
Yeah, no, it may have been Speed Kai actually, because Speed Kai's just passed him. Actually, Speed Kai's getting all over the place.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it may have been Speed Kai there. Sorry, Matt Tim, I do apologise for that. But yeah, Dan the Man, I think will be satisfied with that. It's a win at the end of the day. You know, you've got to go from one race to the other, not really thinking of the championship, especially when there's such a big gap, sort of to the Confessor there. But in the end, I definitely think it will do them a good confidence boost, really. But they just need to keep on it. You know, Dan the Man's issue for many seasons has been his consistency, and I'm not actually too sure what's going on. And yes, I think it's interesting, really. Yes, all as I'm going to say is it's going to be interesting to see how Dan the Man performs here. I think because he runs medium TC, I believe, as well. And I would personally say any circuit that's got traction zones, medium TC, I think loses out. So I don't think he'll be quite as strong here with sort of the likes of Turn 1, the bus stop and so on. But I don't think he'll be too far off. Dan is a multiple world champion at the end of the day. He knows how to drive fast enough.
Well, we shall but see. Let's give you a quick rundown then of our provisional grid order, with half the session pretty much gone now. We're watching ELT Jordan on a lap, currently in 13th, but the Confessor is your provisional pole sitter on a 43.4 with Cam in P2. Jean trying to get his season back on track after a couple of dismal races, provisionally P3. Speed Kai 4th, having a mysterious incident, by the sounds of it, mysterious couple of incidents with Cam, unseen by us. Dan the Man, provisionally P5. Mirko, P6, with Jack Hickman, your reigning TGP1 champion, down in P7. Court, who informed us he was actually born in Belgium this evening. There we go. He's now in P9, thanks to Matt Tibos putting his car in P8. But Jack Pearson is provisionally P10. Dan Morris, P11. Jordan, P12, Phil Bargewell down in 13th, and Dom Smith 14th, and Alistair Bain has just shot up into P7 to ruin my order.
Yeah, John P7. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Alistair Bain as well. Actually, P7 currently. It's a very difficult circuit to really nail.
Yeah, and Jean-Luc Taylor then just starting a lap, as we said, currently in P3. Difficult couple of weeks for Jean, Softy. How much does he need a result here at Spa tonight to keep himself in the right mindset? Because he retired from the last race. The two people he was closest to in the championship were first and second, so they've pulled out a nice healthy gap to him. He needs a podium here, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. I think he'll be disappointed, obviously, after having such a strong P for, I think, first week it was, where he was the only one that's really fighting the Confessor, especially Australia. I think he would be quite disappointed. John is one of those drivers who I think does tend to get ahead of himself. I think in that first week he was very happy with his results, and he was very surprised at the same time that he was faster than most other people in TG1. But I think he'll be wanting a good result, and such a circuit like this where it is quite easy to have fights and keep up with the slipstream and low downforce. I think it's a possibility that he could get a podium yet again, but in the end he just needs to keep it clean and not make mistakes. He actually goes P2 there on a 43.6, but the Confessor is just over 2/10 up going into the final sector on his lap, so I probably would say he's going to gain a bit more in his final chicane. So I'm saying 43.1 to a 43.0 is what the Confessor is probably about to do.
Yeah, so the McLaren driver then lines it up, gets on the power, and towards the line we're going to see him improve his time to a 43.0. He finds 3.5 tenths to give himself a near 6. And Dan the Man's now got a penalty.
What's happened there?
He's had a crash. He's lost his front wing.
But there's no... So he had an incident with Court, but Court is way ahead on the circuit to Dan the Man. Unless I'm reading that wrong. It said Court did... Dan the Man's missing his wing, as you mentioned, but... I read that right. It was an incident with Court, am I correct?
Yeah, I think you're correct, yes.
Yeah, but Court's way further down. Court's into turn 1, so I don't know what really happened there, to be honest. I think there's a few weird incidents that have been going on so far this session, but yeah, we'll have to see probably what's going on with those two come the end of the race. But yeah, that's very unusual, but that's not what Dan needs, a 5-place grid drop. He's currently in P5, so he needs a massive improvement to have any sort of chance of potentially winning or getting a podium this race with such a poor sort of qualifying, really.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jack Hickey's finding time, coming towards the bus stop chicane. He's outbraked himself maybe a little bit there. He was half a second up on his personal best in the middle sector, and the run towards the line is going to put him P3. He finds 7/10 of a second, 7.5 of a second, to put himself ahead of Cam at the moment, who has just invalidated his latest lap time. So we're going to see him peel into the pits. Mirko is out there on a lap. He's improving. We've got a yellow flag. I think there's a slow-moving McLaren. That is the Confessor, who I think might have run out of fuel, or just getting out of people's way. Yeah, he's cutting a bit of grass. It's very grateful, I'm sure, the ground staff of Bar. Meanwhile, Mirko to the line. Wow, P2. Game on. The Finnish driver. Well, it says he's finished. Don't know if he is or not. But he puts himself on the front row. Good stuff.
No, fair play to Mirko there, again, showing that he's actually got a bit of pace to fight it near the front. It is hot, 4/10 gap to the Confessor, so there's still a big gap there, but in the end, you can only beat the people that are around you, and currently he's currently P2, as we've seen. New Zealand Cam is grass cutting to the extremes at the minute with his overheated tyres, so I think he's just given up on life at this point.
Dan Morris goes 6th.
Fair play to Mirko. Yeah, fair play to Dan Morris as well there. So some new guys in TGP1. Obviously Mirko did race in 2011, I believe it was again, but yes, there's some surprising results, and in good ways, and also surprising results in bad ways this season, and it's actually quite enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, we're being treated, really, I have to say. Good crop of drivers at the moment. Having a good time of it, it must be said. We've got this little bit of a lull now where drivers are either in the pits or on their way to the pits with 3 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Cam, meanwhile, is doing neither of those, just having a bit of a jolly. Perhaps on Tokyo Drift, who knows?
Yeah, Cam's been driving on the grass more on this in-lap than the circuit. So, it's an interesting tactic from New Zealand Cam there.
Yeah, sounds it. Meanwhile, just over 3 minutes left to go. Can't really see the time. Yellow flag is blocking that, but I presume we've got about 3 minutes left to go. 3 minutes 20, there we go. So we're going to see drivers shortly. We're going to see the dash out of the pits. Obviously, a very long lap round here. Best part of 2 minutes, really, for an outlap. So drivers going to be having to factor that into their run plan. Obviously, you want to be on track as late as possible, but that does also leave you at the risk of incidents. We're going to see a Ferrari coming out. That's Court. So he's going to be our first driver, I believe. Yes, he is. Going on their final run. We've got also what looks like an Alfa Romeo leaving the pits as well. That, I'm guessing, is going to be Alistair Bain. Yes, it is, because his teammate has retired. So, Court Gill then making his way.
A lot of cars out then.
We've got a lot of cars who are... Oh, there we go now. Here's the rush. Look at this. Look at the pit exit. We've got 4 cars all within the space of a couple of meters of each other heading down Eau Rouge, and it's a few of the top guys as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. The first person, as we said, who's going to set their final flying lap is going to be Court. Just making his way through Les Combes at the moment. There's going to be Alistair Bain. There's going to be that little group of Dan the Man, Jean-Luc Taylor, Jack Hickey, I think it is, and yes, it is, and the Confessor. So 4 big players all in a row of each other there. They'll hope, well, I'm sure they will all hope they're not going to get in each other's way, Softy.
Yeah, I think the Confessor, having this gaggle of cars ahead of him, probably doesn't want that, to be honest. He'll probably take a very slow out lap just to ensure that he's got that gap, because then in the end he's the fastest by a country mile. So he does not want to catch these people, as we actually see a car off ahead of him there, obviously, which is, I believe... it's the Alpha Tauri. No,
Cam's out!
Yeah, Cam has retired. He actually retired in the pits, I believe. So I think there's certain things I'm not going to say, but from certain things I saw earlier on, I think I don't sort of blame him there. But yeah, I think he's thinking, well, it's P5. I'm not going to sort of go back out again. He probably doesn't have any tyres left potentially with the amount of grass cutting he's done there. But yeah, we've seen some interesting qualifying qualifying. Oh, and actually the Confessor's out. The Confessor's out.
Well, it's unseen by me.
But he just randomly spun it. He randomly spun it coming onto the back straight and hit the barrier on the left-hand side. The smallest of touches, and it's killed him. I mean, he's got a 5/10 gap, so I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. He's going to get pole with sort of everyone else's lack of pace, but not really what he wanted. But that was interesting.
Well, down the man then. Let's keep an eye on our latest race winner. The only other man apart from the Confessor to win a race this season. He's got Jack Hickey right behind him, like we saw in Netherlands last time out. So through Eau Rouge then. Keep it in the white lines, Dan. He does. The Ferrari driver then towards the end of Sector 1. This is where we're going to get our first indication of how he is doing in comparison to not only his purple best, but if that map goes purple in the corner, he's going to be fastest overall. But at the moment, he's not even setting a personal best, Softy. That's the first sector that Dan the Man would have wanted. How's Jack Hickey getting on behind?
Slightly down as well, I believe. About 1/4 down is Jack Hickey. So neither of them are improving where they need to at the minute. It is only the first sector. You know, as I mentioned, Dan the Man probably struggling out of that first corner because of the traction with the medium TC. But they're going to need to improve quite a lot to actually fight the Confessor. Jack Hickey is actually invalidated there, so we're going to see what Dan the Man does. But again, he does have that 5-place grid drop come at the start of the race.
Yeah, well, as we see him there coming towards the end of Sector 2, the Ferrari driver, he's got a lot of time to find. He's got well over a second at the moment. He's finding half of it.
Yeah, half of it there, but again, that's still going to be a country mile off what the provisional pole is at the moment. But in the end, I think he's just thinking, right, do what I need to get as many places as I can for when this grid penalty does get applied, even if it is an unfair penalty. Unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done about it. And Court goes up to P8 there, actually, on his final run. But where is Dan the Man going to provisionally finish his qualifying session? And it's P4, so much better from him there.
Jean, I don't think is improving. Jean's not improving, so he's not going to go any quicker. Viva La Merco isn't improving. How's Kieran getting on? He's not improving. Alistair Bain, not improving. Matt Tibos has gone P9. That's something. But I think that's going to be it. It's a bit of an anticlimax to qualifying in the end. Jordan puts himself up into 12th. Dom Smith is not improving, so that is your qualifying. All a bit anticlimactical in the end, but even after a crash, it's the Confessor who's going to be lining up on pole position in Spa, picking up from where he left off in the Netherlands in qualifying at least. We've got a relatively similar Turn 1 layout. I'm not saying we're going to see the same thing happen again, but you know what they say about buses. So let's give you a rundown then of your provisional qualifying order, because we've got a couple of grid penalties in there for Dan the Man and New Zealand Cam. I can't do it now because Dom's just retired. Thank you, Dom. You've made me look like a muppet. Thank you. Thank you. my star of qualifying so far is Mirko. Let's see if he continues it through to the race. But let's have a look through then your qualifying results before grid penalties take place. We've got the Confessor is going to be starting pole position with Mirko joining him on the front row. Jean is going to be third, but then things are going to change a little bit after that. Dan the Man qualified P4, has a 5 place grid penalty. Jack Hickey P5. New Zealand Cam qualified P6, but will have a 5 place grid penalty. Dan Morrison 7th. Phil Bargewell in P8. Matt Tibos is 9th. Kieran is in P10 with Court in P11. Jordan 12th with Alistair Bain 13th. 14th is Jack Pearson. 15th Dom Smith. Mr. Chiapelli retired from qualifying early on the 16th, as did Jake Davies in 17th. Moverit Poop Cannon in 18th, and Big Boy Dewan in 19th. So all to play for in the race, Softy. What are we going to be looking out for? What's the tyre wear levels like round here? Who is going to be one to watch?
Yeah, I mean, tyre wear, I don't think it's massively. It's not huge. It's not that bad around here. I think you will get, again, the Confessor and a lot of the top guys starting on the mediums. Again, no safety car tonight. Slipstream is going to be an us usage down that Camel straight to that first chicane is going to be huge. But again, I think a lot of these cars are going to be running bare minimum, probably less than 5 on the wings, just to ensure that they get that straight line speed. But yeah, it's going to be interesting into Le Combe and into the first chicane, or well, into the first corner, should I say, and Le Combe. But yeah, hopefully it's clean into the first few corners, and hopefully it's a good battle. But we're going to see what Dan the Man can do starting further down as well, and see what Jack Hickey can do. They're the two that I want to see really what they can do this race.
Yeah, well, we shall but see. The drivers are pretty much ready. I don't know if you are. We certainly are in the commentary box. We've got a grid. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5 lights in Belgium. And we're underway here. It's a green light and we're getting going. And it's a good start this time from the Confessor. And it's Jean who's had a really good start as well in P2. And he's going to be challenging into turn 1. Is he? Mirko's going to go the long way round. But he has to settle in behind. But it's Jean who has made his way up into P2 at the moment as they're filtering through turns 1 and 2 nicely without incidents so far on the run down to Eau Rouge. And it's Jean that has moved up into P2. And he's going to be the one that's challenging the Confessor as they get towards Les Combe. Oh, we got a big spin in the background. Matt Tibos hits the wall in big style. He's out of the race straight away. And on the run up to Les Combe, the Confessor has done what he needed to do, and it's Jack Hickey that's on the move, and he makes his way up into third place at Viva La Mirko's expense. But Softy, after what was a very calm and collected first couple of corners, it all got a bit rowdy at Eau Rouge.
It is, yeah. I mean, again, that slipstream effect, very easy to really get dragged along and sort of try and make moves. And as we saw, there was a bit of a jam when we got there, because with the amount of cars that were trying to overtake, you see caught having a penalty there, unfortunately.
Yep, something's happened to Cam as well. We know he had a 5 place grid penalty, but he's down in 13th at the moment, so really not the start that he needed. Jack Hickey doing what he needed to do, as did John, and that's getting ahead of Mirko, who's now under pressure from Phil Bargewell. Phil trying to look round the outside of the AlphaTauri, but nothing doing. Dan the Man is up into P6 as well, having had that 5 place grid penalty, and he's going to want to get past these two as soon as he can and start making rain on the top 3. Phil Bargewell. Oh, and Mirko's round. Mirko's now found a wall, and he's lost his front wing and sent spinning down the order as Dan the Man has picked up a penalty and all of that as well. In an unrelated incident, he track limits extension, which has ended up with him with the penalty, and he's now putting pressure on Phil Bargewell. But interestingly to see there, Dan the Man on the soft tyres, as we got a little bit further back, Kieran getting a bit racy with Court, and the two of them banging wheels, and as they head across the line, Court has just about kept the place for now, but an explosive opening lap, Softy.
Yeah, again, this is what Spa does. Very easy to stay with cars ahead with the slipstream. Lack of downforce, making cars a bit skittish, as well as we actually can see New Zealand Cam and RT Jordan going side by side there. But as we see New Zealand Cam really using his a bit of contact there, but nothing too major, and that's New Zealand Cam through for the time being. But the Confessor is on those medium tyres.
Oh, meanwhile, back at the front, sorry to interrupt you, Softy, but we've got Jack Hickman making a move up the inside of Jonas, and at the end of the Camel Straight, the Red Bull driver has put himself up into P2, where he finished last race, and meanwhile, Dan the Man and Phil Bargewell getting racy. Dan the Man always losing the car coming out of the Les Combe chicane, but Phil Bargewell just about holding on for now. Dan Morris now sends it up the inside as it's Dan on Dan action, and for the moment it's the Williams Dan that's ahead of the Ferrari Dan.
Yeah, see Alistair Bain sadly has spun. further down and has no wing now. But the Confessor, 1.1 seconds, is pulling the gap on Jack Hickey for the time being on those harder tyres.
Well, he's doing what he needs to do out of DRS. And Jean's almost caught napping almost at the end of that straight. He braked a lot earlier than Jack Hickey. Jack clearly having a lot more confidence on the brakes at this stage of the race. And Jack also eking out a bit from Jean as well. Jean could find himself out of DRS2 before he knows it. Meanwhile, Dan the Man with that penalty, as we said, he really needs to get past Dan Morris on those soft tyres. We see the predicted pit stop strategy in front of us here. Might be pitting in as little as 2 laps' time.
Yeah, I think the ideal strategy, as most circuits, is the medium to soft. I'd say probably at Spa as well, because it really wants you to pit early. Because there's only 11 laps, as the Professor does set the fast lap. Because there is only 11 laps, I mean, you can make either one really work, I'd say. But yeah, you're just going to get that slight advantage come sort of lap 4 when it wants you to pit for the mediums.
Well, we've got all sort of racing going on through the pack at the moment. Jean has dropped to about 9 tenths behind Jack Hickey, so it's unlikely we're going to see a change of position there. But where we might see a change of position is for P5. It's Dan on Dan once again, and down the main straight. Dan is up the inside of Dan. As we get towards the end of the Kemmel Straight, it's going to be surely one of the Dans ahead of the other one. And actually, they're side by side, but Dan Morris has just about held on. He spun! He spun! Disaster for Dan as he's let Dan through. And now behind, Court and Kieran are going at it still, as Court just about holds on, and New Zealand Cam's getting involved, and we're seeing Kieran and Cam on track again together. And are we going to see more fireworks?
Oh, I don't know. Speed Kai and New Zealand Cam having fireworks in qualifying. That's probably why you noticed I was probably getting distracted quite a lot towards the end of qualifying, because I was watching those two have a bit of a ding dong there. But it's a good little battle for what, P5 currently. But yeah, unfortunate for Dan Morris there. Very easy to get ragged and lose the rear end through those sections of corners at Le Common. New Zealand Cam half spinning there, but yeah, very unfortunate for Dan, but also very good for other Dan. There's too many Dans, that is for sure.
And look at this, Softy. Phil Bargewell is now the one putting pressure on Jean. So Jean, the gap had just flipped to a second there, so is out of DRS, and Phil Bargewell smelling another podium.
Yeah, and Jean's in the pits there, obviously thinking smartly of it. He knows that he's probably going to lose more time just by staying out, opposed to filling the cars around him. Obviously, he is on those soft spot, he is on those medium tyres, but Jean probably trying to do something with Jack Hickey. But Phil Bargewell doing very well on those medium tyres, and he probably has got the pace on Jack Hickey. But as we can see, the gap is now 2 seconds to the Confessor at front. So I think Jack Hickey probably will pit at the end of this lap.
Yep, perhaps try and do a little bit of an undercut. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we've got Big Boy Ewan all over the back of Mr. Chiapelli. Chiapelli had an awful qualifying, as did Ewan, actually. And as they head down the Kemmel Straight, both with DRS, Ewan's going to look towards the inside, is he? Big's better of it. Chiapelli now covers it. Ewan's going to look around the outside, and he gets it stopped. Chiapelli is still there. These two still side by side, and still side by side. Chiapelli runs Ewan out of the road, and for the moment at least, Chiapelli hangs on to 8th place.
Yeah, fair play there. Obviously, Ewan trying to go around the outside pretty much makes it stick, but I think Mr. Chiapelli sort of knew that and sort of gave him enough room just to sort of stay side by side, and then yeah, it was quite good. But I think Dom Smith has sadly spun from P13.
Yep, disappointment there for the Aston Martin driver. Meanwhile, Kai is closed back up to Court again, as these two resuming their battle that's been going on for the whole race so far. The Confessor, meanwhile, got 2.3 second advantage over Jack Hickey. Softy reckons we'll see Jack Hickey in the pits at the end of this lap. Maybe not. We'll find out. Kieran then, still following that Ferrari very closely. He's going to be able to draw that rear wing by very good accuracy in a minute. I'd imagine we're going to see Court pitting this lap. Yes, we do, getting rid of those soft tyres. And Jack Hickey has come into the pits. So maybe listening to your advice, Softy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a 6-time world champion for nothing. But the interesting thing I must point out is he goes on to the mediums there, and I actually noticed it as they actually goes into each other, the Ferrari and Red Bull there. The Confessor at the end of the Kemmel Straight is around 6 to 7 kph higher on top speed. So clearly Jack Hickey is probably running a bit too much downforce to make a difference on the Confessor, and that's probably allowing the Confessor just to gain that time down the straights and not having to work for it. So yeah, I think Jack Hickey wanting to go for the speed in the corners, but sadly it's not working for him to fight for this win.
Yep, Jack Hickey has come out ahead of Jean. It's worth saying. Phil Bargewell left out there, who's got a penalty to his name. But Jack Hickey remaining ahead of Jean and Dan is important for his hunt for second place, as Mirko, I should say, even picked up a 3-second penalty of his own. Still out there racing at the moment. We've got Cam and Kieran, once again, very close on track. And for those of you who missed it, myself was included, these two did have a collision. So we understand in qualifying, which is the reason why Cam ended up with his 5-place grid penalty. We don't know any more than that, I'm afraid, but I'm sure things will come to light after the race. But for the moment, these two having a battle on track, which is what should be happening. And just 0.6 of a second at the moment separating the two of them. Softy, talk to me a little bit about Cam. His season hasn't probably quite gone to plan. What can he do to turn that around and get himself in a position where as he nearly runs in the back of Kieran?
Yeah, he does.
Where he can challenge.
I mean, it's so easy to say it from the outside. You don't really know what's going on really. I mean, we saw it with Glock many times. Glock came into the league and everyone thought, oh, he's going to win titles, and he never won a title. New Zealand Cam has shown that he's got some great pace. Obviously, he beat me in France to take his first win. He's had one or two more wins since then as well. So he's got that pace. It's just, I think what lets him down is qualifying and then making just silly mistakes. We saw it in Canada a few weeks ago. If he hadn't got any penalties in that race, he would have won that, but he ended up dropping down to what, fourth or fifth, I believe it was. If you actually see Phil Bardwell spun. Phil Bardwell spun. Oh, speaking of Cam, and we just see Phil Bardwell around there. So not what Phil Bardwell wants, and that's ruined a good chance for him as Mr. Chiapelli is up the inside. So unfortunate Phil Bardwell, and he's probably going to be overheating his tyres. And New Zealand Cam spun. Oh God, we're just the Confessor spin so we can have a good race, please. Thank you. We'd all appreciate that. So everyone's spinning these days while we're talking.
Oh, and Sean, something's happened to Jack Hickey. Jack Hickey spun in the same place. He's lost his front wing.
Everyone.
Oh my goodness me! He had such a strong.
Or what? Everyone goes spin and then Jack Hickey spins. And
he
John
had
is
such a strong Dutch Grand Prix, and he's now without a front wing. Him and Cam are going to be trundling back to the pits, and this pushes down the man up to a net P3 at the moment.
And this is what I'm saying. This is what I've been saying all season is no one's got consistency. Everyone is making just silly mistakes. They've not got the pace where they need it. They're inconsistent in qualifying. And that's why the Confessor's gap is so big. It's not because he's he is faster than people, but he's just more consistent. That's why he's got such a massive gap. And incidents like these, it's everyone else to blame as to the reason why he's got such a gap. And New Zealand Cam, a fair bit of corner cutting there going into the pits to change his wing, as Phil is now coming out of the pits.
Well, Cam has now called it a day as Big Boy Ewan has got the fastest lap of the race and isn't too far behind what is in effect the net battle for P2. Kieran could be involved in this battle for P2 as well when he makes his pits. It's lap 7 of 11. We've got 5 laps to go. And we're at the moment watching Dan the Man trying to close down John. The Confessor is your race leader, yet to pit. Kieran, P2, yet to pit. Jordan, yet to pit. And Chiapelli, yet to pit. That is your top 4 on the track at least. Jean down the man, Court, Ewan and Phil Bargewell, who hasn't actually lost a huge amount in all of that thanks to all the carnage going on at the same time. And we got another spinner, Chiapelli. Chiapelli's round, and maybe he should have pitted earlier. Maybe those tyres crying out. But Softy, has someone spilled some oil on the track?
Probably some tears, to be honest, after everyone realising that the Confessor's got such a gap in the race. So everyone's just self-imploding on their own tears, it seems. And it's unfortunate because there was some good battles going on, and instead of battles, they've got battles in the pits to change their front wings.
It's a disaster, really. It's never say never in TGV.
Big Boy Ewan spun trying to get past a wingless Mr. Chiapelli.
Well, It was looking so good for him. The man who's got the fastest lap of the race, I think, stand as the Confessor, comes into the pit. He's having an awfully boring race once again, isn't he? But he won't mind that one bit. Kieran does take the lead of the race at the moment. Where's the Confessor going to come out in relation to Jean? It's going to be quite a big gap, actually. Jean just coming out of the final corner now. The Confessor getting to the end of the pit lane and rejoining with a healthy margin, still in the lead of the race, and now on the quicker soft tyres with just 4 laps to go. Down the man, meanwhile, starting to put a bit of pressure on John. Softy, if you were Jean right now, your 2-3 drivers behind you have all got penalties. Do you just let them go and see the race out?
No, you never want to let them go just in case something happens. You don't want to fight too much. We see Dan the man using all of his errs there just to overtake them. But John not making life difficult at all there. But you don't want to fight too hard if the people behind you have got penalties, because you could get caught up, you could get in a crash and things like that. But you don't want to make it too easy, because chances are they've got the pace on you. Dan the man probably, I would say, does have the pace on Jean. So we're going to see really if Dan can pull a 3-second lead on Jean. So you want to make it a bit difficult so they don't gain too much time on you, but we also don't want to lose too much time by battling.
Yeah, well, we shall but see. He didn't make it too difficult for Dan the man, it must be said. The Ferrari driver moving up into 3rd place on the road. Just Kieran left now to come into the pits, and surely we'll see him peel off into the pits at the end of this lap and release the Confessor once again to take up his usual position at the lead of the race. And indeed we do see the Alpine driver come into the pits. Jean's not giving this one up on Dan. It's still within half a second, so we could see a battle then for 2nd place. Court's put himself in a great position to pick up something if these two do have a bit of an issue. It'll be interesting to see, as we said as well, where Kieran comes out in relation to these two, but I think he's going to be behind them, although it could be close. Where is Kieran?
He's behind them, just. Well, actually, he's going to be ahead of Court, but behind Jean and Dan the man.
Yeah, so he's going to be very close, him and Court. Here we go. Court down the inside into Eau Rouge. They bang wheels, and that was brave stuff from the Dutchman. He picked up a 3-second penalty doing it, but I don't think he'll mind. That was a fantastic move.
Yeah, I think Speed Kai just tried to take the apex there while Court was there, and that's what ended up sending Court over the white line and getting a penalty, so that probably will be removed. But fair play to Court. He did that, I would actually say, legally, even though the penalty says different. But fair play to Court there, making it stick, and that's what you need to do. But Speed Kai probably will get back past him shortly on those fresh softs.
Yep, I think you could be right there, to be quite honest with you. Kai could get in the mix of this. He's not got a penalty, unlike the 2 Ferraris, so Dan could be at threat of not getting anything at all, as we now see Kai go around the outside of Court. Oh, that was good stuff. If we thought Court's move was good, that was a lot better. That was so much better. That's a very good, accomplished, thought-out move there from Kai, as he's now surely going to get his head down and see if he can catch up to the back of Jean.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so. On fresh soft, while John's on 5-lap-old medium. Jean is, I would say, doesn't quite have the pace of the front runners. So I don't think it'll be too long before Speed Kai is up the gearbox of Jean. But it'll be interesting to see if Jean does actually fight this one, as neither of them do have any penalties, and there's 2 laps to go. Yep,
2 laps to go. Kai just 1.2 behind. The Confessor got an 8-second advantage. At the moment, your podium would be the Confessor, Jean and Kai. Dan the man would miss out. He's got to pull another second over Jean if he is to see himself standing on the podium once again. And Kai then just 6/10 behind Jean, as he's really caught this gap quickly. He could be overtaking Dan on the road, let alone when penalties are applied here.
Yeah, it's possible. It's very possible. I mean, it's going to be tight. Because again, there's not a huge amount of overtaking spots that are relatively easy, but he does have that pace advantage with those soft tyres. But it's just how quickly he can get past John. But he's really hustling John through these corners. Again, using all the grip that he's got, where John has very little grip. But they're about equal as Jack Hickey then gets a penalty. He is down in 12th, so not really where he wanted to be, unfortunately. But But yeah, these two cars are still John and Tyler.
Oh, he's going to try again. He's going to try again, Softy. It's the same move, but a different driver, and he's pulled it off just as well. And Kieran moves his way up into third place. Another very well thought out move. He tried. The last lap was the dress rehearsal. The main performance came on this lap around. But I tell you what, are we going to see a second act? Because he's now just 1.3 behind Dan the Man with just over a lap to go.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult to close that gap and actually pass him. I think he'll get probably within, I'd say, half a second come the end of the race on circuit. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Speed. He's actually half spun there, and Jean's going to have a bit of a run, and he will have DRS. I think Jean should probably wait, to be honest, so he can get DRS down the main straight. There's a yellow flag there. I don't think that's anyone
Dewan spun.
Yeah, big boy Ewan spun there, so unfortunately for him there. But yep, Speed Kai is still ahead of Jean, but yeah, I don't think Jean will be able to do anything there. I don't think Speed Kai will be able to do anything with Dan the Man there. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Speed Kai using those fresh softs. And actually, Jean then using all of his errors. Is he going to try and go up the inside here? I think he will. And yes, he is. Jean up the inside here. A bit of wheel.
Oh, there's contact! Jean's round! Jean's round! And he gets the car back on track, and he gets back going again, but that could cost him a podium place. And Dan the Man will be licking his lips and rubbing his hands together while trying to concentrate on driving a car, because that spin might have just given him a podium.
Yeah, I think there was nothing really in it there. I think Jean on those mediums probably understeering a bit. Kai did look like he gave him enough room, but unfortunately, room runs out very quickly in F1 cars, and yeah, unfortunately, a half spin for Jean there.
Well, he's got back to his usual ways. The Confessor, he'll be so gutted of that race where he wasn't on form and he ended up spinning, and he cost himself a chance to equal the record of the most consecutive race wins. But he's going to get his season back on track. This is going to be his 9th win in just the 10th race of the season. The McLaren crosses the line first. It's a usual sight. The Confessor back to winning race in Spa-Francorchamps, and he extends his lead at the championship. Does he? Oh, don't hold me to that one. Dan the Man crosses the line second, but it's going to be third after Kai takes P2. Court's going to cross the line fourth. He doesn't hold on to it. He drops to 6th behind John and Jordan. Phil Bargewell, it could have been so much more if it wasn't for his spin in P7. Jack Pearson, P8. What an under-the-radar performance that was. Dan Morris is going to come round the bus stop chicane to pick up P9 with a damaged front wing. Luca Chiappelli has been in the wall and the wars, and is going to cross the line in P10. Jack Hickman, another one who should be on that podium, undoubtedly, but he crosses the line P11. And Mirko, it could have gone so well for him. His first front row start since all the way back in 2011, but he's going to cross the line on the road P12. And Dom Smith in the other Aston Martin crosses the line P13. And now we've got a bit of a wait for Ewan. And Ewan spun. Ewan's had a nice little pirouette.
A bit of entertainment at the end of the race, I guess.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So, Softy, as we wait for the last few drivers to cross the line, what are your takeaway points from what we've seen tonight in racing? Obviously, the Confessor's got himself back on form in the end, but how much will he be ruining that mistake in the Netherlands?
I think he'll be focused on the championship. I think trying to get the record for most consecutive wins. I think he would have definitely had that in the back of his mind. I don't think his mistake had anything to do with that, and then he got on the curve, and that's it really. But my takeaways from this, the Confessor, if he's not making mistakes, he's got the pace to win, as we've seen. Everyone else still way too inconsistent in pace and mistakes. There's a few surprises in terms of pace-wise, which is always good to see. You've got Jean having a few good races here and there. Phil Bargewell could have been very well in this race as well. Dan Morris, P9, very good from him. Mirko, he was doing well. He did well in qualifying, but didn't really come to fruition in the race. And the likes of Matt Tibbos and losing Cam, yet again having miserable races, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, obviously very disappointing for them. So let's give you a rundown then of your final race of the night, the finishing order. The Confessor takes his 9th win of the season from pole position with the fastest lap. How easy could you want it? The McLaren driver winning the race. Kieran coming home in P2. A stubborn drive from him in the end with some great overtakes. I have to say, I hope Dom clips those and puts those on TGP count later. Dan the Man in P3 after a disappointing qualifying. Jean-Luc Taylor in P5. Jordan is 5th with Court in 6th. Phil Boswell came home 7th with his Mercedes teammate in 8th. Dan Morris was P9. Mr. Celipelli rounds out the top 10 with Jack Hickey, our reigning TGP1 champion, down in P11. Viva Lamerco is in P12. Dom Smith 13th. Big Boy Ewan in 14th. Alistair Bain 15th. Magic Poop Cannon 16th. Cam 17th. Jake Davies 18th. And Matt Tibos didn't even make it round one lap. Is classified / not classified in P19. Softy, any last thoughts from tonight? I guess interestingly, who's your driver of the evening? Who would you give that to?
Ooh, that one is a difficult one. Yeah, there's a few standout performances. I'll probably say I've got to say Dan the Man, to be honest with yourself. I mean, he ended up getting P3 here, and he won the last race. I would say he's probably the most consistent tonight, even with the issues that he's had in Spa. So yeah, I'm saying Dan the Man.
Well, I'm sure Dan will be very pleased with that one. We were certainly pleased with the racing that we saw. It was very good racing, I have to say, and it'll be interesting to see quite how the championship unfolds. We have now reached the half point in the season. One driver has won all but one race. Who knows? Upsets happen. We could still have it. Certainly worth tuning in for the rest of the season to see quite what goes on. I have to say, we're certainly all looking forward to it here. And Softy, we've got a very sort of different week next week, as obviously we always do in TGP1. But who's got to come out in the second half of the season storming? Who's got to come out, hit the ground running, get some results on the board? Who's got to really turn up?
Well, I mean, you'd have to say Dan the Man and Jack Hickey, to be honest. Not necessarily on pace, but just in consistency, in qualifying, not making mistakes. I think they need to really. They're the only two drivers I can really say will give it to the Confessor. But there's a few. Matt Tibos, New Zealand Cam. They've all got pace. They're all champion. Apart from Cam, the champions. They just have not had the season they want. So I'd probably say half the grid need to come out and sort themselves out. But in the end, they're the only ones that can do it. If they want to do it, they can. If they don't, then they don't.
Well, we shall but see. We're certainly looking forward to it. Next week, we are going to the Middle East. We're going to be racing at Abu Dhabi with the safety car back on, and then we're going to be racing in Bahrain. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you then. This has been another fantastic night of TGP1 racing. Make sure you go back and watch it if you've just joined us. But from Softy and I in the commentary box, we wish you all a very good night. This has been a TGP Series production. But for now, we'll see you on PS4.